Okay.
Hey guys, welcome back to the David Mathas podcast. I'm your host, David Mathas, and we have an awesome guest today, Astrid Naranjo. How are you doing, Astrid?
I'm good. I'm very excited to be back.
Yes, absolutely. We obviously have had you back for an interview before, but this is the first time on the podcast, which is really special. So thank you for making time. I know it's pretty late over there in Australia, isn't it?
Well, it's not too bad. It's 9:30, so I generally go to bed at 1 a.m., so it's not that bad here. So
Okay,
that's okay. It's early for me.
You're a night owl then, huh?
Probably. I think just because I have so much links and connections to the US that I tend to work pretty hard roughly after 6 p.m. Once everyone is waking up, I actually start working more. And like in the middle of the day when everyone is sleeping, I am doing like my normal thing. So I go to the gym, I do the things that no one is worrying about while everyone's sleeping. And then when they all wake up, I am ready to talk to them.
There you go. Adjusting. I like it. That's why I get up early in the morning, because I start working about 4:15 in the morning. Because of that too. I have people that are in different time zones and stuff, and I just find it's very, first of all, I'm a morning person. I love the morning.
I am not.
I'll always get up early in the morning, but then by 9 o'clock in the morning, I have 5 hours of work done, and I've got a lot of the day left to do other stuff, podcasts, content creation, go shoot my bow, things that I want to do, go work out, obviously. So why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself? You're obviously a registered dietitian, but why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about yourself here for a minute?
Well, do you want to meet short story or long story? I can go either very short or very long.
Let's do the short story.
Okay. Well, I am originally from Venezuela. I've been a registered dietitian for 8-9 years. And basically, I did my bachelor's degree back in Venezuela. And then when I graduated, I did a little bit of private practice and nutrition workshops, education during a year and a half, 2 years. And then I moved to Australia. Did my first year was pretty much studying English and getting up to speed to being able to handle a master's degree in full English like this. You can do like when you go to United States that you can manage and you can speak Spanish. Some people would understand, some others won't. But here no one spoke Spanish, so I had to learn the proper English. And to do a master's degree, it was such a high level. There was so many things that you had to do, assignments, reading, research, presentations, that you had to handle really well the language. So I did my master's degree 2.5 years, finished with like the last year of my master's was pretty much few different internships, clinical dietetics. There was like food service, a little bit of like public health, and a little bit of a sports nutrition and whatever I wanted to do, like in like private practice and things like that. So you get to do an experience a little bit of everything. And once I graduated, pretty much started straight into hospital work as a clinical dietitian in a rehab hospital that is also a mental health hospital. So I am the only dietitian that works in that hospital. So I look after the rehab patients, the mental health patients, and outpatients. So everyone that needs to be seen by a dietitian, right, I am the one who sees them. So yeah, and it's been very, very interesting to manage the clinical aspect of being a dietitian. Most of the people I see in a rehab setting, for example, are more like elderly or people who have experienced or gone through like an orthopedic surgery, like a hip replacement or knee replacement or some orthopedic injury related, maybe like neck, shoulder, things like that. So most of the times the population I see ranges from 50s to 99, 100 years old. So it is more like my job there is to look after, like try to see whether they're malnourished, whether they need a high protein, high energy diet, whether they need education on diabetes. It's more like chronic disease management for the most part. And obviously there's one or two cases that might come with difficulties or with some allergies or like just challenging conditions that you have to deal with the food service and make sure the patients are handling well the food and they are doing well with that. And on the other side, I have the mental health patients that are obviously a different age population. I can get clients, a patient from 20s, around their 18 years old, and up to 60s, 70s. Like there's a wider range of ages. But this mental health hospital only manages like mild cases of mental health conditions. So I wouldn't get patients that have like a very chronic eating disorder or like are in the point that they need like 24/7 supervision on their food and things like that. It is not like that case.
Okay.
And we don't get patients that are in a very deep, dark place that they need such a huge attention or supervision on things like that. So in the short story, I do see a little bit of clinical, mental health, and when I finish work, I do my online coaching, and I am on social media. So I do a little bit of everything. And with my social media and my online coaching, I do everything else. So dealing with weight loss, mindset, nutrition in general. For the most part, we know we generally deal with fitness and all related topics with that. So that's who I am, and that's what I do.
And for you guys listening, Astrid is a new member of Team BioLane. So she is a new coach for Team BioLane. If you guys haven't checked out her Instagram, it's at Dietitian. I'll put all her information in the description below and stuff. But just a wealth of knowledge. She has great infographics on Instagram, and she's just pumping out content like crazy. So definitely go check her out, go follow her there. But I brought Astrid on here not only because she's a good friend and she's knowledgeable, but because we want to talk to you guys about binge eating, emotional eating, things like that. Because that's something that we as coaches, we have to deal with a lot. And listen, I've had my issues in the past with an eating disorder, which, you know, some of you guys know about, some of you guys don't. I never had the binge eating. All right. That was never something that was part of me. Okay. But I, as a coach, have dealt with many people with it. Astrid has as well. And actually now, you know, knowing a little bit more about her background, dealing with mental health patients and stuff like that, she's in a great position to be able to talk to us and have a conversation about binge eating, emotional eating, what brings it on, how do we try to combat it, how do we try to overcome it, things like that. So with emotional eating, with your clients, what do you see as being the big catalyst to it? Because for some people it could be, you know, breaking up with a relationship, right? A breakup of a relationship. It could be a loss of a job. It could be an injury. We see this stuff all the time. So what are the big things that you see with coaching clients, or just the people you've worked with in the hospital, as far as what's led to their emotional eating, and what are some habits that you see associated with that?
I think the most common themes I see is generally responding to a negative emotion that is associated with some kind of anxiety or stress or something that the client isn't able to deal with. And the easier way to kind of compensate or comfort or like try to cope with that moment or that situation is using food as a reward or something that just calms them down for a little bit. And they trying to find in food a solution, but obviously it is a very short-term solution. And then once they have finished eating and probably most likely overeating, And generally, this is foods that are not necessarily aligned with their goals, or sometimes it just goes a little bit beyond their control, because they tend to be foods that are very highly palatable. They're not going to emotionally eat on carrots.
No.
Or like bananas, or not just fruit. It's generally something that is very tasty, it's very nice, and it just feels warm and rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a kind of food that people seek as a way to cope with something that feels negative and feels oppressing. So it's trying to kind of deal with something good against the bad. But these good things are generally very short-term solutions that generally, especially in binge eating, if emotional eating ends up leading to binge eating, can really affect their mood, or put these clients in a vicious cycle where they are eating something completely out of emotion, out of control, and because it feels so good, they don't want that to end, so they continue to do that, or continue to eat until the packet is finished. But at the same time, we see people mindlessly doing it and not even feeling or actually trying to connect with their experience of eating it and enjoying it. They're just doing something that at some point becomes very automatic, and they just grabbing food and try to kind of deal with it until they're so full that they actually can't just eat anymore. But at this point, they feel sick, or they feel like bloated. They can't just handle anymore. And they have sometimes two options: people who feel guilt and regret, and even worse after, might end up throwing that up.
Yep.
And like vomiting it, just to kind of, well, now I feel so bad that I need to get rid of it. And that's the kind of bulimia binge eating association.
So
And there are yeah.
I just want to touch on something real quick, because you brought up some really interesting things that I think we can expand on. Number one, you said, and I completely agree, it's a control thing, right? You want to take back control of whatever emotions you're feeling, right? And it's kind of a way, you said, to numb yourself from it. And I think that's a big issue that we see, is that people are afraid to confront their emotions, right? They don't want to feel that anger. They don't want to feel that sadness and everything. That's part of being human, right? We need to learn. And I think the people that I work with, especially when I start teaching them and talking to them about, listen, sit with your emotions for a little bit. Don't run from them, right? Because if you don't confront the issue, if you don't confront the main problem that's causing it, like you said, this vicious cycle is going to continue. And I know that was my case too. And like I said, I didn't have binge eating, right? But like, there was emotions that I was running from, that I was over exercising to try to combat, right? That I was under eating trying to combat. So all of it comes down to, most eating disorders, most that stuff comes down to like a control issue. You want to take back control of this loss of yourself that you feel, right? And I think that people tend to look at food as a drug in some instances, right? Like, it's not heroin, it's not cocaine, it's nothing like that. But if you think about it, food is one of the most powerful things in our life. We have to have it in order to live and survive. And it's the one thing that we have to do 3, 4, 5 times a day, right? So when you're faced with that, and then that instant endorphin rush from having that donut or having that cookie and stuff, it's that instant drug high. And people want to blame this on sugar. And actually, you had a great post on sugar today. It's not sugar that's causing this, right? Actually, most people that overeat on sugar, they're actually overeating on stuff that has high fat in it also. So like, I think you mentioned, it's highly palatable, right? So guys, we're going to have a whole nother podcast at some point on sugar, but don't fear sugar. But the point of this is that Astrid was completely right. It's a control issue. You don't want to sit with your feelings. You're afraid of your feelings, when in reality, if you would give yourself that time to sit with it and just think about what you're feeling, think about what you're going through, and give yourself time to calm down instead of reaching for those Oreos, you're probably going to have a much better progress in the future. So I didn't mean to
And
interrupt.
that's where, no, that's fine. And I think that's where I really encourage mindful eating, just because it is a very powerful skill to have,
Mhm.
more than an exercise. And like people see it as oh yes, just meditate and do the exercise. I don't really like the way it is seen as just a particular approach to lose weight, or not. I see it as if you're going to eat something that you actually enjoy and like, pay attention to it. Like, at least make it worth it. Because if you're not going to be mindful, you're not going to be there present to even enjoy it. It's like worthless. It's
Yep.
not worth it, because then you completely ate the full packet of chips or the full bag of chocolate, and you didn't even tasted it. You didn't even stop and like smell it, or what is it like that actually caused that pleasure that you're looking for. Like, if you're really trying to find some level of comfort from food, at least do it right. So
Yeah.
sometimes you might find the most intensity of something by just having a little bit, but really paying attention to it. Like, well, if I want to enjoy this, let's just focus on it. Let's stop
Right.
let's drop the phone. Let's put all my senses onto this one thing, and let's just experience how it tastes, how it smells, the texture of it. And when you realize after 4 bites, and you're actually being very mindful,
Mhm.
you start noticing that the intensity of the pleasure is not the same.
Exactly.
And
As you start doing more
that
of it, the pleasure comes down.
comes down because the flavor and the taste becomes very habitual and normal the more you have it. So it becomes like, oh yeah, it's still tasting good, but
Right.
it's not as intense. It's not as intense. It's not like, and so at that point in time, I think if you're really mindful and aware, you can have a time of reflection, whether if I continue to eat this, is it going to really make me feel better? Or is it actually going to make me feel worse? Or is it aligned with my goals? Like, if I continue to eat the full block of chocolate, is this really going to make me feel better?
Right.
If,
So
if the answer is yes, perfect. But if the answer is, you know what, I had a good piece of it, I enjoyed it, but it's actually not going to solve my problems, and it is actually going to make me feel more guilty
right.
and take me away from my goals. Like, if you're looking to improve your body composition or just feel better around your body, if you start doing something that goes against that, then it's not going to really help you to get away from the situation of feeling out of control or that emotional eating that you're experiencing.
So
Does that make sense?
you talked about mindfulness, right? And I think that's really important to touch on because when we're sad, when we're depressed, when we're anything, the last thing we want to do is be mindful of that, right?
Mm,
We don't want to think about that breakup we had. We don't want to think about getting fired. We don't want to think about this injury that's causing us. So we know mindfulness is an issue, right? And it does not help in our society that, at the click of a thumb, I can turn on my phone, I can scroll through Instagram, I can see everybody's perfect life, right? Because that's all anybody shows on Instagram is your perfect life. I can turn on Netflix, I can, get lost in a series and binge watch a series, right? While I'm sitting there eating ice cream or cookies and stuff. So we know mindfulness is an issue. And we have all these distractions around us at our fingertips to not think about our emotions, not sit with our feelings, not trying to figure them out. So what are some tips that you used maybe during in the hospital setting or with clients now? I think we can talk about some tips that we use to try to bring people into mindfulness and how to sit there with that emotion. What are some of your top things that you talk to clients about?
well, before I say anything about that, I think one of the main points is trying to find focus. And sometimes that focus tends to be associated with that mindfulness and being aware and be present with the things you're doing or the things that are aligned with your purpose or your intentions, and your goals as well. So I think being aware and be focused sometimes tends to be an issue as well. Like, I get clients that they just feel they lose the focus all the time because they're stressed, they're anxious, they're they're going through life through different stresses, and they feel like they lose focus and control, and they started utilizing food again as a mechanism for getting or feeling better. And at that point, they come and ask me, how do I refocus? How can I just get back on track if I struggling with that? And one of the main things that relates to mindfulness is trying to bring that awareness, self-awareness on where you're at right now, and what are your whys? Why are you doing certain things in the first place? Why did you started trying to change your body composition or your relationship with food? Why did you even started coaching with me in the first place? There must have been something that drove you to this place. So what are these whys that you just need to revisit more often to kind of bring that awareness back of, oh yes, this is why I did this. And we tend to forget when we are under stress or where we are in other situations that they just take our focus or attention, or just alter our priorities. Sometimes our priorities can change, and that's fine, and we need to be prepared for it. It's just a matter of being honest with you and just trying to be flexible and work around that.
Yep, that's a major point, is that we lie to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I have a lot of people that come to me and they're like, oh, I know what to do, right? Like, I know how to eat, I know what I should do, I just can't do it, right? And I'm like, listen, everybody needs accountability, right? Because we as human beings have this amazing gift and amazing curse to make ourselves believe anything, right? We can make ourselves believe that we can become doctors or whatever you want to do, right? We also have this ability to believe that one meal is going to throw everything off track. So getting that focus, having goals, having somebody to hold you accountable, things like that are really important. And how much do you think, I guess, how am I trying to say this? How do you think it correlates between people that go through like binge eating and emotional episodes and not having clear cut goals? Do you think those things like kind of go hand in hand, where if somebody doesn't have very strong focused goals, they're more likely to binge eat and emotional eat?
I think it depends person by person. I think some people tend to have these two things associated. If they have no goals, they seem to talk to themselves like, what's the point?
Yeah.
I just have no plan, so what, I can do whatever, it doesn't matter. But when you have obviously set goals and you have already a plan, or you've been set certain intentions or certain weekly goals or like bigger goals, you're more likely to be more accountable and obviously be more focused on what you want to achieve. And that sort of give you a little bit of guidance into your decision making when you're in these situations. But some people, even if they have big goals, it might be that the situation overtakes most of their mind.
That's true.
And even at that point, like having big goals and intentions might go completely away if they don't know how to handle self-awareness and bring that reflective thought pattern at that point in time. So it's a matter of being really aware and manage compassion, self-compassion as well, because that seems to be forgotten a lot. Like I tell my patients and clients all the time, it's okay, you did that, but now how can you take this or whatever happened and put it into a place where you see it more as a learning opportunity?
Yes.
And what can you take out of it to make it better next time, rather than see it like you fail to yourself.
Right.
It's more like
we all fail.
Yeah.
We have to learn from it. I mean, that's how we've gotten to where we're at right now, right? We failed so many times in the past and we overcame it. I think people with and I guess this kind of goes back to, people that do even have very clear goals. So many people are very all or nothing, right? So as soon as something goes bad, it's like they have that one cookie or that one piece of pizza, and it's like, well, everything's all thrown out the window. I might as well just have it all, right? So how do we overcome kind of that all or nothing mentality in order to maybe help, simmer down these binge eating episodes, these emotional eating episodes, and keep people on track? Because one thing I notice when people that I work with a lot, that they do sort of have these emotional eating, these binge eating episodes, things like that. First of all, the self-awareness is not there, like you talked about, right? That inability to sit with their emotions is not there. But they also have this all or nothing mentality that it's like, as soon as one little thing goes bad, right? One little thing, it's like the worst thing in the world, and the world's just blown up. So we might as well eat everything in the pantry. So how do we overcome that all or nothing mentality?
I think it's not that easy. It's easier said than done. But
Absolutely.
basically, the problem seems to be a little bit wider than just the black or white mindset. Just because obviously there is a perfectionist behind that
Yep.
all or nothing. Sometimes it's like, I really need to do this perfect, otherwise what's the point if I'm not perfect in what I'm trying to do? So if they do something which for them seems to be mediocre, but it is not mediocre, they did or gave their 80%, but they weren't able to give their 100%, that feels like they failed. And that just that fact, the fact that they just feel like they fail, is like, well, I wasn't able to do my 100%, so what's the point to keep doing these things? So
So
it's like rigidity mentality. Like, it's a rigid mentality where perfectionism. You want to do everything perfect or not. Or with food, like, or I either have the whole pizza or I prefer not to have anything, just because it doesn't make sense for me to have just a little bit. But this is associated with that chronic restriction. And obviously, if you restrict it so much, when you want to have something, you want to have a massive amount,
right.
because it's like you've been waiting for it. So what's the point of eating just a little tiny bit of pizza if I haven't been able to eat it in 2 months or 3 years? Because I've been restricting it for so long that when I want to have it, I just deserve a lot of it.
Well, I think
Otherwise, I just don't want to have it.
that's very true. And I think that's going to lead into the flexible dieting talk that we might have here in a second. But I'm glad that you brought up that it's not a black and white issue. Like, people think it's like, oh, I can overcome all or nothing mentality right away. No. We all have different perceptions. We all have different upbringings, things that have shaped our lives. So it's not as easy as being like, oh, I'm going to go from all or nothing to, very moderate thinking, right? It's not that easy. You have to work it step by step. And for a lot of people, like some of my clients, let's just say, for example, they have this issue where they once a week, they go out and they just binge on a pizza or ice cream or something like that, right? Instead of trying to cut it back right away, why don't we just try to bring it down a little bit, right? Let's try to work it step by step, because I think what we find is that people that have more of an ability, I guess, to say, to go off on that deep end with binge eating, is that if you do anything drastic to change anything, they're going to fail, right? And I think that's a lot. I think that happens a lot with a lot of clients and a lot of human beings, is that we don't like drastic change, right? It's uncomfortable to us. It kind of, I don't know, reacts this fight or flight mode in our body, right? Survival thing. So what I like to do in this situation is, okay, let's say somebody has this issue where once a week they go off and they eat this large, extra large pizza, right? All the slices, and they feel guilty about it. Well, it's not realistic to think that we're going to stop that right away, right? So why don't we try to only eat 3/4 of the pizza, right? Let's just back off, eat 3/4. You can put off a quarter. It's not going to hurt anything, right? And then get them used to that, and then little by little back it down. And those are the clients that I find have the most success, is when we take it, when we know where they want to go, right? But this is where they're at, and we kind of find that middle ground right there and try to slowly work it down. So I'm glad you brought up that it's not a black and white issue, because so many people think it is.
Let me add something else. Like, with binge eating, there seems to be a big, strong association with like that black or white mindset, or like all or nothing. But there's also a bunch of other factors that are affecting this pattern and this behavior. Because people, when they binge, they try to obviously compensate or try to accommodate for what they did, because it's bad. They feel guilt, they feel shame.
Right.
So, well, how can I make this up? How can I sort of compensate. So the next day, obviously they skip meals, they skip breakfast because they have to create a calorie deficit somehow to kind of, accommodate for the additional extra 1,000 calories they ate last night.
Right.
But they are skipping breakfast. Probably depending on how guilty they feel, they will skip lunch as well, trying to ignore their hunger signals. And they will keep repeating this cycle because they will be remembering at some point that they actually humans and they get hungry. And when they hungry, they get to a point that is so ravenous and so drastic, so huge, that the capacity for you to respond when you're very hungry and ravenous, your capacity of decision making is so poor that you're going to eat whatever feels good, that is rewarding and tastes good and it's just feeling. And in addition to that, when you're so hungry, your body is in survival mode. So it will look and crave for foods that are high energy, highly calorie
energy too.
Just because it's a way to it's a way that the body is going to say, I need to prepare for another starvation day that might happen tomorrow. So it's just like this survival reaction of your body to crave for highly dense energy food that will just provide for the next day. But the behaviors continue to repeat, and that's when you start reinforcing that binge eating behavior. So one of the things I generally try to talk to my clients straight away is we need to break this cycle. And the way we break this cycle is, even if you binge last night, you have to have breakfast.
Right.
And you have to start building a structure throughout the day that give you 3 meals to snacks, or even if it's only 3 meals, that just give you a practical structure that you can adhere to, even if you're not hungry the first day or the second day, because you're not used to like hunger and your stomach. I don't know if you have heard anything about this, but I practically see it all the time, that generally like appetite and hunger is something that you can adjust and you can teach when you're going to. It's like something habitual. So like your ghrelin is a hormone that you might teach how to and when it's going to sort of go off.
Right.
And if you get used to not having breakfast, you're not going to be hungry.
Right.
Because you are teaching your body not to be hungry.
Real quick, why don't you explain to everybody what ghrelin and leptin are? Because some people might not understand exactly what. I know you didn't say leptin.
Okay.
Kind of go hand in hand. So.
Yeah, well, ghrelin and leptin. Well, I teach this all the time in my group session. So, ghrelin is the hormone that is produced by your stomach, and some gland, in your stomach. I'm gonna keep it simple. So I don't want to complicate it. So, in basic terms, your body produces lots of different hormones, but one of the hormones that regulates appetite is ghrelin. So it is produced by your stomach, and it's the one that pretty much increases that appetite, that hunger. So ghrelin, like the word grow, it's like is the when you start feeling that sensation in your stomach that you're hungry.
I always tell people I associate it with like growling. Like, you have your stomach to growl. It's like ghrelin.
Yeah, exactly.
Growling.
Correct. So that is one of the hormones that generally, when you chronically diet or you have that increased metabolic adaptation, that hormone is very, very high. So it's a way for your body to say, I'm hungry, and it's a way to drive you to eat. And along the same one, we have leptin, which is primarily produced by your adipose tissue, and it is going to be driving your appetite and satiety. So when you're chronically dieting, or you have metabolic adaptation after contest prep, or just from a long diet, your leptin levels drop to a level that even if you eat and you feel full, your body is like, I am not satiated, I need more food.
Yes.
So it is just these two work together in order to drive you to eat more. Does that make sense? I just wanted to keep it simple. Don't want to be complicated.
It makes sense to me, obviously, but I wanted you to explain it so that people are like, what is she talking about ghrelin for? Like, I don't know what that is. So no, that's great, because that helps explain a lot of this too, and how, I guess this is a good transition. So let's transition from all of that into, what does binge eating do physiologically in your body? How does it affect your body physiologically? And I guess, I mean, you kind of talked about it right there with the ghrelin and leptin and stuff like that too, but what other physiological stuff can happen from an extended history of binge eating?
Well, it just depends on how severe the binge eating is and
Sure.
how many calories we're talking about. But it is not just like when we just overeating, like just the fact that overeating drives some metabolic responses to it. Like obviously there's some energetic component to it that is going to be associated by the thermic effect of food. Some of that is increasing some of the metabolic reactions. There's going to be a glycogen replenishment if you're eating carbohydrates, but it's also going to be an excess of calories that might be driven to adipose tissue.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's just like the representation of overeating, and overeating consistently over and over, day by day, that leads to weight gain. So that's why binge eating most likely is associated with people that are fighting with overweight problems, and they fighting with self-esteem and body composition image, and that can drive further issues with binge eating. Because again, it's a cycle that is not just an eating behavior, it's also a mental response, is a habit, it becomes a pattern that you pretty much are predisposed to repeat until you break.
So I think a lot of what we do with food starts in our brain, right?
Completely.
How we think about food, what we think about food, all of that. I mean, I tell people the main purpose for food is fuel for our body, right? But there's also a social, connective aspect of food. I mean, you think about it at holidays all the time, right? Like, there's always food. That's what brings people together. There's like a community feel about food, right? But so many people, they overcomplicate what food is, and I think that starts to put more of this emphasis and more of this power onto food, right? Because it is such a driving force in our life, but I think people give food so much power, like it has the power to make me feel good right away, right? It has the power to do this and all that. And we have to start changing the way we think about food, right? So I think these people that turn to food and start binge eating when emotional things happen, right? They're thinking of food as a means to quickly feel better, as opposed to what it should be is it's fuel for our body, and it should be used to enjoy company with people, right? Those are the main things of it. So we have to change what we go to in our mind when a bad situation comes up. I like to tell people a lot, go out for a walk. Like, if you're emotional, go out for a walk. Like, don't just go to the pantry. Don't walk to the pantry. Go outside, get some fresh air, go do something that you enjoy doing. If you need to escape that thought for a moment, like if that emotion is going to lead to binge eating, pick something else. Like, do you like to go watch movies? Do you like to go for a walk? Do you want to go work out? Go do something to take your mind away from that. But we have to start with that up in our head, or else we're always going to turn towards food as the quick fix. And there is no quick fix. Like, even if you do these other things I'm telling you about, it's not like everything's going to be 100% better. But what it does is it gives our body time to calm down, and it gives our body time to think rationally, right? Instead of going and having a whole bag of Oreos. Go ahead.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I would add that generally I don't like people just doing something that engage them cognitively, but also physically. It has to be a little bit of both.
100%.
Generally, it's more powerful, and it allows them to completely take the mind away. If they're doing something with their hands or the body, but they're also engaging their brain, maybe thinking about something, maybe it's a mental game, or they singing and at the same time they're dancing, or they're working out. It is a combination of these two things that completely takes away the pressure of the emotion because that's why you're distracting from the brain, but also your body is moving, is producing serotonin, is making you feel better physically. Because the issue is that a lot of people see exercise as a mean to burn calories, but they don't see that exercise sometimes is just a matter of, like, it's a tool that allows you to feel good. It's a tool that allows you to increase serotonin production, increase dopamine, increase lots of different chemicals in your brain that allows you to feel better. So a combination of something physical with something cognitively engaging are a great tool to mix together when we're trying to deal with binge eating. And also, binge eating can be a response from being bored. I have clients that have come to me just because they tend to be so productive throughout the day and they are always busy. And then when they come home at 5 p.m., they have like, now what to do? I have nothing to do. Yeah. And they feel unproductive. So they turn to food as a way to just kind of get busy on something.
I find that,
and that can happen.
Binge eating happens a lot on off days from the gym. Right. And this might just be anecdotal from what I've seen or whatever, but I think that goes along with what you're saying. People are bored, right? And so when you're out of your routine, when you're on the go all the time, right? Your body's always in this sympathetic mode. It never has time to calm down. Well, what happens on your off day when things slow down? You come back down to that parasympathetic mode. Everything starts to regulate. You're growing and your leptin kind of regulate itself. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're hungry and you can't stop eating at that point. Well, part of it is you're coming back down. Your body needs those calories and stuff, right? But you're bored because you only live for the gym or you only live for work. This is why having hobbies is so important outside of the gym, right? Because a lot of people, I'm sure you see it with your clients, I see it with a lot of mine too, is that if they're not in the gym working out, they think that they're losing progress. And then I think that gets emotional, right? And then it leads down a path. So obviously for people that are listening to this, it's not always gym related, right? Other people have other emotions that they're dealing with and stuff like that.
Related.
Do what?
It can be work related.
Absolutely.
Work related. It can be just always busy on clients and meetings, and like everything is bang, 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 and then suddenly they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And then they find themselves just reaching to food to sort of do something.
And this is why having something other than work or other than the gym or something is so crucial. I mean, listen, people say, oh, but that's my favorite thing. Well, I get it. I love working out too. Okay. Like nobody's saying you have to stop, but you need to have another outlet because you can't be so focused on that, because when that's taken away, whether because of an off day or an injury, I mean, I've been dealing with injuries for a long time. I haven't really trained much in the last 6 months. And listen, it's tough. It can be emotionally tough at times, but I have other outlets, right? I have other outlets that keep my mind and my body physically focused. I like to shoot my bow. I like to go fishing. I like to shoot guns. I like to go for walks. I can at least go for walks now, right? But the point is that Astrid's saying that you got to keep your mind occupied, but you also have to keep your body occupied, because the two go hand in hand. All right. So why don't we transition this into how we can better deal with some of these binges through flexible dieting? Because you did bring up a point earlier in the podcast that, a lot of it is because you restrict yourself so much throughout the week and then it happens, right? So how do you use flexible dieting with your clients? I know you also do meal plans and stuff for people too, but how have you seen that incorporating flexible dieting strategies has maybe helped temper some of this emotional eating in people?
For the most part, I generally tell my clients, and I have a few clients having something they like every single day, like a piece of chocolate, a square of chocolate. You know what? Let's have it every single day. But you will have only one square, and we're going to practice mindful eating with that. We're actually going to sit down and listen to the packet when you're opening it and smell it and try to find memories associated with that particular chocolate. And we're going to put it in your mouth, and you will have like that piece of chocolate at least for 2 minutes sitting in your tongue. Like pretty much like it gets very boring, because it's like, can I swallow it
Yeah.
at some point? But once you have that experience day after day after day, it becomes so natural and so normal, same as any other food, that the desire for something, just looking forward to the one that one weekend that I'm going to have that huge meal and that huge block of chocolate, is no longer something that you start feeling like you need, because it's something that becomes so normal and so natural, that by the time that these patterns or thought patterns become pretty much like outdated and probably not as important. That is one thing. Avoiding, obviously, doing nothing
Yeah.
is something that you need to start thinking about. You got to find some activities. You have to write down right now 5 things that you can do that are not food related, that will engage you physically and mentally, but there are things that you enjoy doing, whether it's taking your pet, playing with your puppy,
Yeah.
or if you have kids, play with your kids, or just play a board game, or like dance or do karaoke, whatever. I don't know. Go and exercise if you want to. Go for a run, go for a walk. There are plenty of things that you can do
Right.
that are not food related, that will give you that period of time to feel busy
Well,
and doing something.
doing that exercise, writing that down, think about it. That's mindfulness, right? That's the first step to being mindful is, okay, what can I do to be more mindful, right? Like, what are these activities that I can do that are going to make me more mindful? When in reality, that's the first step right there. You're doing it right there. I like to tell people with flexible dieting that are maybe a little bit hesitant to it, or they think they're going to go off the rail or all this stuff, is that, listen, you got to start thinking about food as not good and not bad. There is no good food. There is
Food
no
rules,
bad food.
not for rules.
Obviously, like, yes, we all know the quote unquote good foods that people talk about, right? We want the most micronutrient dense options that we can get into our body. Fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, you name it, right? Healthy fats. But pizza, a couple slices of pizza, a bowl of ice cream, a candy bar, a
It's
shake,
okay.
that's fine. All you got to do, you have to account for the macros, right? And I think people sometimes get this wrong perception. And I actually did a video on this one time about the differences between flexible dieting and IIFYM, if it fits your macros. Because I think there's two separate groups. Although, yes, technically they are the same thing. I think people that are subscribed to the like IIFYM mindset is like, oh, I'm just going to have Skittles here. I'm going to have pizza here. I'm going to just fill all that with my diet. Whereas flexible dieters, I think the mindset is more, okay, I'm going to have my typical healthier meals, right? But I'm going to be able to have this pizza every now and then, or I'm going to be able to have this ice cream.
If you want.
If you want, right. If you want. And if you don't want to, listen, that doesn't mean you have an eating disorder. That it's okay to want to eat healthy. The problem comes when it ruins your life if you have that something different, right? If it completely wrecks your mind, if it throws you off the deep end, that's the issue. I have plenty of people that are like, I don't feel good after I have pizza. I don't feel good after I have fries or a burger. So I just avoid it. I'm like, that's fine. That's fine. You can
Or I just don't need it.
or you
I
just
just feel like I don't need it right now. But when I want to have it, I just give myself unconditional permission to have it, and I have it if I want to.
and you know
That's
what?
where it becomes very, very intuitive, where you got to a point that you know what your body likes and what your body needs. And some days you will want pizza or donuts, and you might want to have it, and you allow yourself to have it.
Yeah.
But if you feel like you don't need it right now because it might affect my energy levels or like the way I perform at the gym, my recovery, I don't think this is aligned with my goals. So I don't need to have it right now. But I could if I wanted to.
You just hit the nail on the head. And I think that's the best way to kind of start wrapping this up is, do your choices align with your long-term goals or even your short-term goals, whatever? Do they align with your goals? And I think you have to ask yourself every single time, listen, are you emotional? Yes. Listen, feelings are real, right? But they're not always right. Meaning we have a lot of different things in our life that can change our perception of how we feel. right? We can exasperate our feelings, right? But it doesn't necessarily equate to what's really going on. So does grabbing that bag of potato chips, right? Is that going to help you now and align with your goals in the future, right? If it does, go for it, right? But most of the time it's not going to. But I think people lose focus of this. And listen, I catch myself all the time. And I mean, not even just with food, just with other choices in my life. Does me choosing this align with where I want to be over here? And I think if we can wrap our heads around that, understand that there is no good food, there is no bad food, right? And this all or nothing mentality is something that you can't overcome right away, but we can slowly start working it back down and learn to recognize, learn to sit with our emotions, learn to be mindful of that, just like you talked about earlier. I think that can go a long way with helping people. But ultimately, if there is a deep rooted issue, you need to reach out for professional help. You're not going to necessarily be able to handle it on your own. And that doesn't make you weak. That doesn't make you vulnerable. It just makes you human, right? I mean, I've worked with therapists in the past. I wrote a damn book on the thing, right? On all my issues, right? I'm a huge proponent of therapy, and I would not have been able to get over my problems, my circumstances without it. And I think a lot of people try to obviously use food as a therapist, but they don't ever get to the root cause. So maybe it gets better for a little bit, but it doesn't completely go away. And then one little thing happens and you resort back. So listen, I think this is
And a lot of people,
go.
and just add that a lot of people want to play it hard, like I'm just tough. I can handle this,
Right.
but they accumulate these situations so much over and over and over that it gets to a point that it just go out of hand, and that's where you need to sort of reach out. Like even if it's just talking to someone, because we are ashamed of these behaviors, and we don't even talk to our family or
Oh,
closest friends because we feel that this you're not worth it, and
you're
this is not
embarrassed.
worth to talk about,
You're
and
embarrassed.
that becomes a taboo and embarrassment. So that's something that you need to make it more natural. And like I think it is becoming more natural, and there is more awareness around it, and people are a little bit more open to talk about it, even like in social media, and like posts that generally you put out there to sort of bring awareness, and people are a little bit bolder to just go and talk about it and show their vulnerability. But that's where people are scared to open up and talk about their vulnerabilities and the things that they are embarrassed or ashamed of. So I guess this is a really good way to say, just being open about it. There are more people struggling, and you're not the only one that you're going through this. So even like you won't get pointed like you are a bad person
Mhm.
just because you're struggling with binge eating. There are ways to get out of that and to break that pattern. And sometimes being open about it can really bring that freedom. So it is good to speak out.
Absolutely. It starts with being compassionate towards yourself. Listen, we all have issues. We all have stuff we go through. You have to be compassionate about yourself. And when you're compassionate to yourself, that's when doors open for recovery to happen. So listen, this was a great talk. I hope this helped you guys. Like, listen, this is not meant to cure you by any means. This is just two coaches, two professionals in this industry that see this a lot, that deal with this a lot, that just want to bring you guys information and let you know that it can be overcome. All right. But it's going to take work. It's going to take time, but it's also going to take you recognizing that you need to reach out for help as well. So, Astrid, where can they find you?
Find me in my Instagram, antidiet_dietitian. I have a YouTube channel as well under my name, Astrid APD. I think that's pretty much it. If you speak Spanish, you can find me in my Spanish account that is linked in my English account. So don't worry about it, you'll find it. But if you want to get some coaching, you know that you can find me as well into the biolane.com/coaching, something like that. I'm not too sure how do you say
I'll put
that.
all the links below. So,
But
um,
basically, I'm here with Team BioLane, so you can reach me out there, or just send me a DM if you want directly to my Instagram, and I'll be soon to touch base with you.
Well, you are a wealth of knowledge, and guys, definitely go check out her YouTube channel. We did an awesome video on insulin last year. Yeah, it was something like last year.
Yeah.
Definitely go check that out. Go subscribe to her stuff. Follow her. She's a wealth of knowledge. Astrid, I appreciate you coming on. Welcome to the Team BioLane. We're glad to have you, and looking forward to doing more topics and podcasts with you in the future. So, guys, thank you for tuning in. You know the drill. Subscribe, share, do all that good stuff. It really helps me out. I really appreciate it. And I'll be back with another episode soon.